U.S. military asks troops for, quote, creative and unconventional ideas to punish Iran. Sorry to pull an Elonism here, but just let that sink in. I want you to imagine, like, where we're at. Just, guys, we're out of ideas. Just anything you've got. So, caveats. We have no money, no missiles, no public will for a ground invasion, and we're not crazy enough to use nukes. So what do? The request from a senior official at the U.S. military command carrying out Trump's war with Iran came in an email. We need ideas. Jesus. An officer in U.S. CENTCOM's intelligence branch wrote in a message sent Wednesday to a broad group of military analysts. Thank God for this leaky-ass Pentagon. The crowdsourcing style inquiry, which military officials said was unusual over email, yeah, it's a little bit weird, you know, a little bit strange, I think. U.S. CENTCOM has a long history of thinking and working in innovative ways, says Captain Timothy Hawkins, a spokesperson for CENTCOM, in a statement. We're familiar with this guy. Because he's got to spin doctor this a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, it leaked. We've long had innovative ways of approaching wars, like desperately asking our underlings to come up with solutions after everything we've tried has failed. Breaking points, U.S. general choose between Israel and homeland. Who said that?
One of the things that we have learned from this war is what a failure the U.S. basing strategy has been throughout the region. And now we have this extraordinary development we can put up here on the screen. After how many years have we been in Iraq? Because of this war, it appears that we are approaching an actual full withdrawal from Iraq, as bases in the Kurdistan region face attacks from Iran and their proxies.
Iran has achieved what Hussein loyalists, what ISIS could not. We might finally be leaving Iraq.
Patriot air defense systems that detect and shoot down incoming missiles and drones have already been removed, according to Al Monitor and their sources. Let me go ahead and read you a little bit of this article. They say the U.S. military has started to draw down its last remaining forces from Iraq stationed in the vicinity of Erbil's airport in the Iraqi Kurdistan region, well-placed sources tell Al Monitor. Patriot mobile air-to-surface air defense systems that detect and shoot down incoming missiles, drones, and...
The Vietnam War, if it only took 3 months? Yeah, back in the 1960s and 70s, we hadn't yet invented financialized capital, at least not in the contemporary sense. So our military contracted companies actually produced weapons of war. Like back then, we did, in fact, still have the ability to build weapons and ammunition and tanks and so on, and we could marshal men. Now we can't do either.
Other airborne enemy equipment have already been removed from the military compound. The pullout started last week and is ongoing with the bulk of the U.S. forces and their heavy equipment out. All of the Patriot anti-missile batteries had been redeployed to an undisclosed destination, they said, adding that other defensive weapon systems remained in place as of the time of publication. Regional officials claimed the pullout was...
Oh, just to underscore my point here on the point of financial capital hollowing out the earth, we're back to record-breaking S&P 500 averages. Back to daily all-time highs.
Saga routine and in line with the U.S. commitment to withdraw all its forces from Iraq by a September 30th deadline that was agreed with Baghdad. So I think we can read the tea leaves here. And I mean, this is pretty extraordinary. Basically, Iran wants us out of the region. And in a way, we are being forced to oblige because we can no longer protect our forces throughout the region. We have to marshal our resources as
totally unmoored from reality. I think, if anything, the past couple of decades have proven the stock market is perfectly moored to reality. The more wealth there is in the stock market, the less wealth there is outside of it. Record stock market highs indicate more and more money being pulled out of the real world and into the financialized bubble, where it does nothing except enrich a smaller and smaller group of oligarchs, you know?
Run low on all sorts of missiles and missile interceptors and all the rest. So we have to strategically reposition to make sure we can protect, I guess, the most vital assets at this point. And so after all of this, it is now the Iran war that has actually forced us to fully withdraw from Iraq, where we never should have been in the first place.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was going to start. It's like, well, let's actually look at the history of the space of Kurdistan. This was one of the jump off points between the United States and ISIS, where we fought side by side. with the United States Special Forces and a lot of the Kurdish troops that helped defeat ISIS both in Iraq and in Syria. But then let's actually take a step back even further and let's think about why these bases and all of that have to be driven out in the first place. The truth is we invaded this country of Iraq, and yeah, we deposed Saddam.
I want to see where the quote is. Choose between Israel and homeland. I want to see where that quote is. What U.S. general said that?
And we leave to shoot drones, knocked out military affairs. I mean, first of all, when we read this headline, some might even ask, why are we protecting Israel in the first place? But the top U.S. general in the region has now warned the Pentagon, quote, he lacks sufficient forces to protect Israel. He says that a shortage of Navy destroyers used to defend against Iranian ballistic missile attacks will now have to force the head of European Command to prioritize the U.S. homeland instead. He says that the Pentagon this week, he lacks sufficient naval forces to continue protecting Israel from incoming ballistic missiles, illustrating how the ongoing Iran war has imposed the constraints on the military. And
interesting. Yeah, I think I caught a blurb on this, but didn't read the whole article. General Alexis Grinkiewicz, fellow Polak, commander of the U.S. Eastern Command, sorry, not Eastern, European Command, wrote to senior military officials at the Pentagon that unless another Navy destroyer is deployed, he would have to choose between defending the homeland over Israel. The U.S. currently has 5 destroyers based out of port in Spain to deploy to the eastern Mediterranean Sea to help defend Israel. A 6th vessel is expected to be added later this year. Excellent.
That he will be forced to choose between defense of the U.S., quote, homeland, as in bases, over that of Israel, who, like some others, spoke on the condition of anonymity here to the Washington Post. But what I think this demonstrates, first of all, is that same empire problem that we had previously. Don't forget that we had a situation where the United States was expending more of our interceptors than Israel was expending of their own, even though they have them. Why? For no reason that has ever been revealed here to the public. Let's not forget that in the Operation Midnight Hammer and 13...
So are stocks just evil in general? That's a simplistic way of putting it, but yeah.
Days, the United States expended 25% of the entire THAAD inventory. 25% of everything that we
just
had.
12K phone bank dials matching all of yesterday, but only in the first hour for Abdul. Folks, if you're not phone banking for Abdul Al-Sayed within Progressive Victory, you might be a fucking loser. You might be, genuinely, you might be a fucking... This is the reason why no one went out to you with you for prom, and you had to just go on your own with your friends, and you sat in the corner, you know, eating the what are they, the meals they set out the table, you know? You were just out there calorie maxing. It's because you hadn't phone banked with PV for Abdul Al-Sayed.
To shoot down missiles that were headed towards Israel, not towards the United States. So see now how the defense of Israel, not just in terms of them dragging us into this war or being complicit, etc., convincing Trump to do it, but even just the sheer military defense of them, what it has cost us and allies that are actually meaningful and helpful to our country. I think when you pour these two things together,
it is worth remembering, and I know I've said this many times, but I have to keep repeating it because I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Israel isn't the fundamental evil here. Israel is just an extension of the capital interest. Everything that is happening right now would have happened with or without Israel. If the Holocaust had never happened, and as a consequence, the Jewish state was never formed, etc., right? If the different timeline, all of this still would have happened. Israel, and by extension, the Jewish population of well, I guess the world really, and to the extent they're sort of weaponized to justify intervention in the Middle East, all of that is just a means to an end, and the end is for the whole world to be turned into gold. Israel isn't the fundamental issue here, kind of a tangential one, really. Though opposition to what Israel is doing is also, in the same way, a kind of broader opposition to the influence of capital.
These two things together and then show these Gulf allies, which, by the way, I'm not some big Gulf defender, but if you're going to look at it on a balance sheet, you'd say, hey, we get a hell of a lot more from Kuwait or Bahrain or any of these places than we do from Israel, this tiny little country with no even oil, or in terms of our trading. And especially if you were to put them together, you would obviously prioritize one over the other. And I'm not just the one saying that. Remember, we even played Saudis on their own television in the midst of the war who were furious, saying they're defending Israel, but they can't even defend us. It's such a crazy situation.
I mean, let's just pause on the wild nature of even having to say, well, we've got a tough choice on our hands. Defend Israel or defend the homeland. Like, how is this even being framed as, I don't know, which way should we go? But it shows you how
if there was no Israel, America would have to invent an Israel. You know, people in chat might not be aware, but that's an actual quote from then Senator Joe Biden. You all know that? Very straightforward.
Israel in this body for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel. I am with my colleagues who are on the floor in the Foreign Relations Committee, and we worry at length about NATO. And we worry about the eastern flank of NATO, Greece and Turkey, and how important it is. They pale by comparison. May I have one more minute, I ask my colleague?
Very, very straightforward stuff. And we voted for this guy? Hey, don't look at me. I voted for Trump 3 times. I'm not to blame. I kid.